Assalamu alaikum friends, welcome to lecture 19 of SBL. This is the second lecture under your risk, and this is the last lecture for this semester, that is for June exam, and also under risk this is the last lecture. So I have covered section A, B, C, D, the first four lecture for the June session, and the remaining four session, that is section E, which is your technology, data analytics. Then we have section F, financial control. Then we have G, audit and success, like change management. The remaining four sections I'm going to cover in the September session, because due to time I was not able to cover all the lecture, but even this is very useful. Okay, so in the first part of, that is lecture 18, I have covered about identifying, measuring and assessing risk. This is the next part of it, where you have to do the latest stage, which you manage, you monitor and you mitigate the risk. Okay, this is something which is again a very easy lecture, so we can quickly go by this without wasting much time. In this we are going to focus on this 10 areas. Okay, 9 to 10 areas, starting with the role of the board. Why board is so important? Everyone is important in managing risk. Okay, starting from the role of the board. So this people are responsible for risk management. We'll see how. So role of the board, the risk committee, we have a special committee called risk committee just to manage the risk. Then we have risk manager, risk awareness, embedding risk in the organization. We have risk management, which is known as TARA or SARA model, risk auditing, then reporting of that risk, and assurance mapping and risk management. All these areas are important for your exam. You cannot miss out on anything. Okay, so starting with this is just a snapshot of what you're going to cover. Okay, at the end we are going to again go through this summary. Okay, the roles, the board, the risk committee, risk manager, all those things. Okay, now role of the board. So board considers risk at the strategic level. Okay, board always take consideration of the strategic positions, like the top level things. So they will look a risk at the strategic level. Okay, and also it defines the organization's appetite and approach to risk. Appetite means how much you can bear the risk, or what is your level of bearing capacity of risk. Everyone has a different level. Every organization, some they can bear a very high level of risk, some, for some it's low, right? Then we have the board is responsible for driving the risk management process. Who starts this risk management process? Who is the driving force behind that pushes? Okay, risk management should happen. It is the board. It starts with the board at the top level. If they are not there to motivate, if they are not there to guide, people at the lower level will not actually take risk management process so seriously. Okay, so this board, they make sure that managers are responsible, that whatever the board says, managers are the one who are going to put it in the action. They implement this risk management. Then the board is responsible for ensuring that risk management should support the strategic objective of the organization. Okay, for example, you want to be the highest quality in your market of the product, so your risk should be in such a way that manages your quality. Okay, then we have the board will determine the level of risk which the organization can accept in order to meet a strategic objective. Board decides how much of level, or what is your level of risk that you are going to bear. Is it high, low, moderate? It is the board who decides. And then it is followed in the organization. Everyone follows it. Then we have more. They ensure that the risk management strategy is communicated to the rest of the organization. And it has to be integrated with other activities. Don't take risk management as a separate activity. With all your other normal activity, risk management is also there, part of it. So they review the risk, they identify and they monitor the progress of risk management plans. How much is the progress and all. They will determine which risk will be accepted or not. Some risk you cannot manage. No matter what, it will be there. You have to accept it. Okay, because they are not cost effective. If you try to reduce them, it's more costly. Okay, and they will delegate these activities to the risk committee. Board then decides this risk committee activity to the risk committee. There is a special committee known as risk committee, which is set up only for the risk management, like how we have audit committee, remuneration committee, nomination committee. These three other committees we have covered in our previous lecture, but risk committee was left out, so that we are going to cover here. Okay, so board and the risk committee together they work. Okay, now what is the framework? So this is a framework how they consider risk. Okay, what the business will do, that is the business strategy. Then comes the risk appetite, how much risk the business will accept, how risk will be managed, that is a risk strategy. Residual risk, that means risk that cannot be managed. After you have managed the risk strategies are done, some risks are left, that is known as the residual risk. Residue means leftover, you cannot manage it. Then we have two, one is risk attitude, one is risk capacity. Risk attitude means what is your approach to risk, how do you view risk, do you want to take risk, do not want to take risk. Capacity is what is your maximum risk that business can accept, beyond which you cannot go. Okay, so know these terms: appetite, attitude, capacity. They are different and you should know the meaning. How much risk appetite affects your risk policy. Based on your appetite, it will affect. There are two types of policies for risk. One is known as risk averse, the other one is known as risk seeking. Risk averse means you avoid risky situations. Organizations like public sector and charity. Okay, so when they develop their risk policy, what do? Do they develop very sophisticated? No, because they want to avoid risk. They develop less sophisticated and less costly risk policies. Whereas on the other hand, if you go to the risk seeking, they are the opposite. They take additional risk, like in financial derivative traders and all. So here they seek risk management as of strategic importance. They think taking risk is very important, and also they invest in a comprehensive risk management system, unlike risk averse where they are going only by a simple risk management system. Coming to the risk appetite factor, this will decide what is your risk appetite. Number one, what is your nature of product being manufactured. Okay, some products are very risky. Okay, one example is aircraft. Aircrafts have a risk of it has a high risk of product failure. Okay, so what happens? The risk appetite of the board is limited in this case because the risk is very high. But for some, risk of failure is less, like fizzy drink. Even there's a small change, customers will not notice the difference so much. Okay, so if a company is taking significant risk in some product, that means they will limit the risk in some other product of a same company, so that you are not taking too much of risk in all the products. Okay, some products you have to take high risk, some you are taking less risk, depends on the nature of the product, because some has a risk of high failure, there you cannot take high risk. Some has a low risk failure, there you can take high risk, like fizzy drinks and all you can take high risk. Aircraft and all you cannot take high risk, because the failure is, the impact is so much. Next factor is the need to increase sales. So when you move on to the new market, okay, the risk is higher, right, then you developing a new product in the current market. And also it depends on what stage you are. Okay, because at that stage they will appear to have a higher risk appetite. If you want to go in the higher market, like new market, you are accepting a higher risk appetite because you're taking a higher risk by going into the new market. Whereas if you are trying to increase sales in the existing market. Background of the board, some board members they accept risk personally. Okay, so it, because they are risk takers, so personally in their behavior you can say it, and that is the way they manage the business also. Amount of change in the market, operating in a mobile place with a significant change, example mobile telephones. What does it mean? Means that the board have to accept a higher degree of risk. Okay, where significant change is required, you are dealing in a market with a higher risk of degree. For example, if new mobiles are available quickly, you are accepting a higher degree of risk. Reputation of the company, if it has a good reputation, board will accept less risk. And if it has a, you know, because they do not want to lose the good reputation. So these things are pretty much simple, that's why I can go quickly. You can see I'm going a little bit quick because, as you know, this is your exams are near, and risk appetite and organizational factors are there. See, there is no easy correlation. You cannot say because it's a big size, risk appetite is more low, structures like this, that's why risk appetite is more or less, or development. No, but Some features are there that says okay. But generally, you can say a small young company, they are risk taker. They have a higher risk appetite because they are taking the risk to get its product into the market. Whereas the established business, they already are established. So now they do not want to take more risk. They are risk averse. They want to avoid risk. They just want to stay in that position or protect their market shares. Okay. Now, coming to the next is the risk committee. We are over with the role of the board. Coming to the risk committee. What is risk committee? See, if you go through your corporate governance code, they do not specifically say that a risk committee has to be there. Okay, but it is better. You can either have the risk and the audit committee together, or many companies, what they do, very big company, they set up separate risk committee from the audit committee. Okay, sometimes you can say risk committee is a risk management committee. Okay, and when no risk committee is formed, audit committee are the one who will perform the duties of the risk committee. Roles of the risk committee. These are the roles of the risk committee. Make sure you know the roles of the risk committee. Exams can ask this question. It has asked in the past. Update company risk profile and appetite. I don't think I have to explain anything. It's self-explanatory. The risk awareness. They make sure everyone knows about risk. Establish policies for risk management. Implement the process to monitor and report the risk. Not just update risk, but they monitor this risk and they report this risk also. Composition of the risk committee. How risk committee is made up of? It is made up of both executive and non-executive directors in the board, but majority is on the non-executive director. Why executive director? Because they have the knowledge about the risk. They are the one who are involved in the company most of the time, so they know about the risk more than non-executive director. Responsibilities of the risk committee. This is, I think, it's very easy. I'll quickly go. They assess the risk management process. For example, identification, measurement, controlling. Then they demonstrate and emphasize the benefit. What is the benefit of a risk approach to internal control? They consider the risk audit reports so that they know what is the business level of business risk exposure. They assess the risk of new venture and they review things like credit risk, finance risk, interest rate risk, liquidity risk, operational risk. Okay. They consider whether public disclosure of information regarding internal control and risk management is in accordance with the statutory requirement and financial reporting standards. Sometimes you have to report also. So they have to make sure whether it is according to the financial reporting standards or no. Then make recommendations to the full board on all significant matters relating to risk strategy and policies. Okay, they can make recommendations to the board. What is the significant matter regarding risk strategy and policies? Now, third, we are shifting to the risk manager from risk committee. Okay, what is the role of the risk manager? Okay, so they are a member of a risk management committee or risk committee. They report directly to the committee and the board. You should know who has the authority over whom. Risk manager comes below risk committee. They report to the board or the risk committee. These are their roles. They focus primarily on implementation. They implement. Who implements actually? Risk committee and board, they make sure they don't implement. Risk manager is the one who implements whatever the risk management policies comes down from the board and the committee. They support and monitor the risk management committee. Their role is more operational than strategic because they are involving right in implementing and all. So policies set by the board and risk management and implemented by risk manager. This you should know. What are the activities? Provision of overall leaders. They are like basically a leader of risk for the risk management deal. They identify, they evaluate risk. Okay. They implement risk management strategies. They seek opportunities so that they can improve the risk management methodologies. They monitor the status of risk management strategies and internal audits. And they ensure that all recommendations are acted upon. They develop, they implement, they manage risk management programs and initiatives. If there are any risk management programs and initiatives in the organization, they are the one who make sure that it is done. And everyone is made aware of this program in the organization. We have more roles, activities. You don't have to know all the activities, just 3 or 4 is enough to answer. Managing good working relationships with the board and risk man. They have to have a good relationships with the board and the risk management committee. Ensure compliance with any laws and regulations affecting the business. Okay, implement a set of risk indicators and reports. They have to know these are the indicators of reports, and also they have to report also what are the losses, what are the incidents, what are the key risks. Early warning indicators are done by the risk manager. Majority of the work are done by the risk manager. Make sure you know the roles of the risk manager in your exam. They license with the insurance company, because insurance company is the one who deals with the risk most of the time, big risk and all, like car insurance, health insurance, life insurance. Regarding claims, your conditions, your cover available, they are the one who does it. And depending on the specific law, not all law requires, but some law allows them, like the risk manager, to work with the external auditor to give assistance and assurance in the risk. And according to the some jurisdiction, you can produce reports on risk management, the risk manager, along with the auditor. One example is Sarbanes-Oxley Act allows you to do that in US. Now we are coming to the fourth, risk awareness. So, in general, a lack of risk awareness means what? Organization has an inappropriate risk management strategy. Okay, that means you're not aware of the risk management strategy. That is the meaning of lack of risk awareness. So you make them aware, because if you're not aware of the risk, how do you manage the risk? First comes risk awareness before you actually start working on it. Okay, so what does it mean? Lack means you have not identified. Okay, so if you have not identified, there'll be lack of control over the risk. Second, risk occurs, but control is not effective to deal with it. They are not able to monitor. Third, continued monitoring with the organization. So you have to keep on monitoring it continuously, not just once or twice a year. So the risk management strategies, they have to be updated, because environment changes, your risk changes. So does management strategy needs to change. Now, there are levels of risk awareness. Number one, strategic level. There are three levels: strategic, technical, and operational. Strategic level says what? You see the organization, monitor the risk affecting the whole organization as a whole, like a big picture. Example are like new competitors coming, new technologies coming. So you have to make sure that you identify this on a timely basis. It should not be that a new competitor comes and you come to know after 1 month that there is a new competitor. No. Okay, because if you at the best, if you do not monitor, you will fall behind the competitor, but at worst you might be out of the business. Coming to the operational tactical level, tactical says monitoring is required for risk that affects tactical managers. Okay, so risk in this category affects individual divisions or units, not like the whole business. Okay, and also how the organization is structured. There are two structure: divisional, functional. For divisional structure, if you do not monitor, what happens? Supply, continuity of supply will be affected, your distribution channels will be affected. Okay, okay, so if you're not able to recognize that your supplier is in liquidation, it might lead to a result in a delay, right? For you it will be a delay because you're not getting the raw materials that you have demanded. You will not even get time to find an alternative source of material because you don't know your supply is in liquidation from before. If it's a functional structure, continuity of process, because functional works, one works on the other, one is dependent on the other, the process is like a cycle. So one is not functioning, it will affect the other, process will not be completed. Again, the tactical level. So resignation of key staff is one example of tactical level. If they resign, key processes are not completed, customers will not be invoiced for the good delivery. Staff motivation has to be monitored early, otherwise they will leave. Okay, if you monitor them early, you know. Okay, so this gives an early warning of staff leaving. You should be knowing it from the first instance, how, if a staff is demotivated or not, so that you can actually do something about it. Operational level. Okay, you monitor risk from day to day at running. Okay, see, if you do not monitor, it will not affect your survival. You will keep on going for some time, but it is the continued errors, you keep on doing mistake, then it becomes a major one, and it affects reputation also over time. Remember, for example, you are not monitoring what your supplier wants, sorry, your customer wants, you are giving them the wrong product, customers are returning so much of product, so much of return is there. Okay, so if you keep on doing it one or twice, it's okay, it could be managed, but if you keep on doing it over the time, customers, you are going to lose on some good key customers, which will affect your sales. Sources of information on risk. There are some sources of information. Most of the time, it is the risk committee who will obtain information about risk and also the weaknesses in control. From these are the sources. Reports from departmental manager, whistleblowers, because whistleblowers are the one who complains that this is an issue, that is an issue. Report on key project and new business areas, because these are risky areas, key project, new business area. Results of internal audit reviews, possibly from audit committee. Customer feedback is another one. Criticisms and all. Performance monitoring system, internal and external factor, and director's own observations. Now we are moving on to the embedding risk. How do you embed risk? Embedding means it becomes a part of way we do business. It's like how we do. This is our thing. There are two levels. One at systematic level, the other one is culture. So you can embed risk in culture or system. There are differences. First, we'll see in the system. How do you embed risk in the system? You ensure that risk management is included in your control system. Okay. So in this context, what does it mean? Control system helps ensures other systems are working correctly, like accounting systems are working correctly. Risk management is not seen as a separate system. It is in the overall system, right? Part of it. In many, like in US, okay, in many jurisdictions, there's a statutory requirement that you have to embed risk in your system, like US. But for UK, we have code of best practice. And remember, to be successful, you have to embed risk management. And risk management, embedding risk management needs approval and support from the board. You just cannot embed risk management in the system. It needs support as well as approval from the board. Coming to the embedding risk in the culture. Okay, before coming to the culture, there are procedures how you have to embed risk. These are the steps one needs to follow, and in this order only. Number one, you first need to identify and control that are already there in your organization, existing. Second, you have to monitor whether those controls are working or not. Third, you improve and refine those controls if they're not working. Fourth, you document the evidence that you have monitored using some performance metrics. You might be having some performance metrics to make sure they are working or not. And then there is an independent assessment that is done by whom? Internal or external auditor. Now we are moving on to success. How do you know when embedding risk system is a success? These are the ways you will know. It is supported by the board. It is communicated to all the manager and employees. Second, it is supported by experts in risk management. Third, incorporated into the whole organization, not a separate department. It is linked to your strategic and operational objective also. In your budgeting, planning, reviews. Again, it's not a separate process. Then it is supported by existing committees like audit committee, board meetings. And sufficient time is given also, okay, by management to provide reports to the board. Now, embedding risk in culture. This is a difficult one, trust me, because changing culture, putting something in the culture, we know how long it takes. Unlike systems and all, it's easy. So yeah, risk management needs to be embedded into policies and procedures. Okay, like how you do. You are going to accept bribery, not you are going to accept this level of. It is in your culture. You embed in a culture, but it may still fail unless all workers in a company accept the need for risk. See, everyone in an organization, whether the top level, middle level, low level, needs to accept that risk needs to be managed from your board to employees. If they do not accept, whatever best policy you have is going to fail. Workers have to be made sure that they understand the need for it. They accept it. So embedding this into culture and values, that means this is normal. Okay? This is a risk, it's normal, we have to deal with it. Now, how do you embed the risk in the culture? There are methods of it. You align individual goals with the organization. You include risk management policies itself in the job description. So all the employees know beforehand that you have to manage risk. Third, you even have a system where you reward systems where recognizes risk rather than blaming that this is your fault, that's why this risk is there. No. Then you establish matrices and performance indicators that allows you to monitor the risk so that it can give an early warning that if this is very risky, what you need to do. You inform all this stuff. And you publish success stories in your wall or in your website to show how embedding risk management in the culture has benefited both organization and culture. Sorry, staff. Now, success of embedding risk in the culture. Same how we had for system. How do you know it's a success? When culture is open. You are open to new ideas, procedures, and change. Second, overall commitment is there by the risk management policies at all levels. Everyone in the organization, top to bottom, has a commitment. Third, attitude to internal controls. Are you viewing them, thinking them that it's not needed, they are constraints, they are waste of money, or you think it's giving a benefit in terms of lowering risk? It's an attitude. If its attitude is positive, you are viewing it as a benefit. Embedding risk in culture is success, otherwise it's a failure. That's how you decide. Governance. The need include risk management in the organization to meet the needs and expectations of external stakeholders. Okay. That means you have to have a need, and whether risk management is a normal part of the organization culture. If it is, then it's good, otherwise it's a failure. Or are you taking it for granted or not? Now we are coming to the risk management strategy. This is very important. It will be asked in the exam, so you have to know what are the four strategies. It is known as Tara or Sara. Earlier it was just Tara. Now new textbook says it's Sara also. Why? Because let me say, let me tell you what each one stands for. T stands for transfer. You can either transfer, share, or you can share, transfer or share. That's why Tara or Sara. Rest the three remains the same. Avoid risk, reduce risk, or accept the risk. Okay. Now, what is transfer? How do you transfer? For example, you transfer the risk to a third party, like how you're taking an insurance. If anything happens, any event occur, you transfer the risk to the insurance, isn't it? So this is an example of transferring risk. It is also known as sharing also, where you protect yourself against some losses. Okay. Then we come to risk sharing, like you take a risk with the joint venture or the franchisees. You share the risk. Then we come to avoidance, where you avoid risk together. This usually cannot happen, but it can only happen when you try to avoid investing in that, or you completely withdraw from the business. Okay, like you don't take the activity at all, you avoid it, then you can avoid the risk. But usually once you take a risk activity, it's hard to avoid. Reduction, you limit the exposure to that area. Okay. And acceptance, you accept the risk because you think this risk is very small. If you try to correct it, try to reduce or do something, cost is more than benefit, so no need, let's keep it as it is. For example, there is always a risk that is going to rain, so if you try to hedge or try to reduce this risk, it will be more costly because you are not insured against the rain. Understanding? There are other examples of risk reduction. Okay, what are they? Risk pooling, where you pool all the risk. That means you take less risky and you take a high risky product or shares where you are investing together, so that overall your risk is reduced. Rather than investing everything in high risk and putting them together, keep some low, some high, so it can the risk cancels out each other. Understanding? Then an example of risk pooling is what? Test your understanding one. Okay, so this company is into tennis, into sporting event, TGB company. They are running tennis tournament and downhill skiing event in various countries. In the past, they have been successful. Since the last 10 years, they have always made a profit. Now they are considering some sporting event that needs to be done in the next financial year. So basically, the requirement is they have given you the four event, and you have to decide based on the Tara model whether you have to transfer, accept, reduce, or avoid the risk. And part B says compare and contrast. That means similarities and differences between the risk manager and the risk committee's role. These two questions are very important for your SBL exam, because in your SBL exam, the nature of a SBL exam, the actual exam I'm talking about, if you have gone through, you will see that they often ask these questions. What is the risk management strategy? Means Tara model you have to apply, or Sara model, and compare and contrast between the risk manager and risk committee. It looks like similar, but remember when it comes to answering becomes very difficult. That's why I'm emphasizing it more on it. Okay. So now let us start with the first four. Okay. Or either ways you can do one by one, but what I would suggest is read all the four and then you go for a risk management strategy, that is Tara model. Apply the Tara model. So first one is, it's a repeat of this year's successful 2 week long outdoor tennis tournament at a time of hour when there's a 10% probability that rain will occur on any given day. Okay, if rain occurs, what happens? Customers are allowed access to the tournament on the following day. So it's not actually a loss because you are getting the customer on the following day. But what happens if the rain on 2 consecutive days? Then the tickets for those days are declared void and cannot be used. Okay. Now coming to second one, a new proposal to hold curling championships in 25 different countries in 1 year. 25 different countries in 1 year. What is curling? It is a sport played on ice where football-sized stones are slid across the ice with the aim of stopping them as close as possible to target them on the ice. Okay, so basically it is something which is played on the ice. The moment you see ice, you know it's somewhere a cold country because hot countries will not have ice. Okay, but we'll see. Okay, so curling is done in the cold countries. We'll see, it's written somewhere there. So organization of championships will mean they either has to hire additional staff or run fewer sporting events in other sports. Demand for the curling sports, curling championship is high. Okay, so demand for this sport is high in colder countries, as I told you, but unclear in warmer countries where the sport has never been played. Correct. Third, a new proposal to hold motorbiking racing on the streets of a major European city. The city would effectively be closed to the other traffic for a week, with races taking place on normal public roads. That means they are taking it on the normal public roads. So there's a probability that 95% at least one rider will be killed, and 85% probability that a serious injury to more than 10 spectators and result of a crash. Their insurance have indicated that they would not be prepared to insure this event. However, the financial accountant indicates that the event would be highly profitable, this event. And the last one is, it's a repeat of a successful skiing championship in Alps. Championship has run for last 25 years. However, analysts say that due to global warming, there's a remote possibility of this of them not receiving snow. Okay, remote, that means very unlikely, very less possibility of it not receiving snow this year, and championship will not be able to go ahead. The board consider this risk as being the remote and it's not worth worrying. So use the Tara model now. Okay, all those definitions and all you can skip. No need to define what is transfer, what is accept, what is avoid, what is reduce. Not at all. Immediately go and start applying. This is just for understanding they have given. But in the main exam, that's why the answer looks very big if you see y under transfer as well. So here in this answer, they have used only two strategy. One is transfer, the other one is accept. Okay, then they went to part B if you see. Okay, we'll see why. So when you're giving different options, let's say maybe 2-3 options are under transfer, you have to give it in different paragraphs. Okay, you need to know how to answer. So now we'll see. There are two risks which are going to be transferred. One is the outdoor tennis tournament where we have that rain thing and all, 10% probability of it raining one day and next day, right? So this you can transfer. Okay, how? Transfer it to home. Transfer it to home. We'll see. So you can take an insurance for the raining thing. Okay, so while TGB can accept the risk of one day, so you can accept the risk for the one day raining. Why? Because the next day customer will come, that you are being losing them. Hopefully build contingencies into their time budgets for this. The risk of losing any more days would be guarded against. They are likely to take out insurance against this possibility. That means more than one day rain, they are going to take insurance against this. What is that insurance for? For the loss of the profit. And also you have to repay customers for their tickets when more than 2 days consecutive play is lost. Okay, that is for one. That is for raining thing. Now we are coming to the Curlian championship. You see they are in two different paragraphs. So never write, even if it is accept the same strategy for all, don't write everything together. You have to separate. You first need to identify for what, like this, for curling championship or for the rain, for the what is the tennis play. You need to first tell and then you have to tell. So in this, what is the best option do you think? Curling championship is done in the cool country, not warm country. So the best option is to limit the risk in this area. How?
Holding the championships in all 25 countries appears risky as demand is not known and will involve additional costs. One option, therefore, is to hold the championship this year. Okay, you can transfer the risk. You can hold the championship this year only. That means only this year. In the colder countries where demand is higher, you know the demand this year, you know it is in the colder country. At least this year, just hold it in the colder countries. So, demanding on the success this year, for the next year, you can plan. The feasibility of extending the championship in the following year can be assessed. So you can do it like this. This is a strategy that you are giving. Okay. Just because it is transferred does not mean everything goes to insurance and you are going to say, okay, insure it, insure it, insure it. No, this is also a way of transferring it. You are transferring whatever is successful. You are going to, what are you going to do? This year you do, hold it for this year, see what's happening this year, and then based on this year's success, do a feasibility report and then extend it next year. Simple. Acceptance. Okay. So if you see two things are gone. One is curling championship, the other one is regarding the rain. Now what is left? The skiing championship. Okay, wait, just give me a minute. I need to check. I think they have not answered for the motorbike racing. So anywhere in the answer. Just okay, they have not. So we'll go through the skiing championship. Here you accept. Why? Because the effect of having global so because of the global warming, you are not getting the snow, probability is less, and also they told the risk is remote. So better just accept it. Okay. Now we are going to part B, risk manager and risk committee, contrast and compare. Similarities are there, differences are there. So you write different subheadings like this, what they do, give an overview of the two things. How they do risk awareness, then how do they monitor risk. Give topics like this, subheadings like this, and then under that you are going to write risk manager, risk committee, risk manager, risk committee, company risk profile, operational strategic. Differences comes here. Risk management policy, then best practice in risk management. Okay, so what are the areas? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 areas you can talk about. So what is an overview? Who is a risk manager? Risk manager and then risk committee. Okay, you can write it in any order. So if you have seen all this answer, they start with risk committee, risk manager, risk committee, risk managers. Like that you do. Okay, but in different paragraph. Okay, do not put it in the same paragraph. So let's start with the overview. Risk manager is a member of the risk committee, isn't it? So they report to the committee. Manager reports to the committee as well as to the board also. Risk committee on the other hand includes board members as well as senior management. Okay. If there is no risk committee, still it can be carried on by the audit committee. But you need a risk manager. Okay. Even if risk committee is not there, still it will be carried out by the audit committee. Still the risk manager can report to the audit committee, but risk manager has to be there. Okay. Now coming to the risk awareness. Risk committee is responsible for raising risk awareness. Risk manager is responsible for implementing those risk awareness policies. Monitoring risk. Both are responsible for monitoring. Okay. Both risk manager and risk committee. But what is the difference is risk manager is in the detail level they are monitoring risk. Whereas risk committee, they make sure that efficient process is there in place for monitoring. You understanding? To identify, report and monitor the risk. But risk manager, they actually identify, they actually report this to the risk committee. You see, risk committee is over risk manager. And whatever the monitoring that manager does, it will be at the lower level only to the committee. Okay. So manager has to work with the internal auditors, okay, to make sure that they monitor the detailed implementation and review the risk management strategies. Coming to the company risk profile. Risk, they are responsible for updating the company's risk profile, the risk committee, and report that to the board and make recommendations also. Risk manager, they will be advising the committee on the risk profile and risk appetite. Now, coming operational strategic. Risk committee, strategic role. Risk manager, operational role. Why? Because they set up a process. They don't actually implement. It is the risk manager who implements, who is in the action. Okay. What do? They monitor the whole risk management process and make recommendations to the risk manager that this is the risk management process. Risk manager, on the other hand, they implement their recommendations. They take that recommendation from the risk committee and they implement. Okay. Risk management policy. Overall risk management policy is set by the board committee, risk committee, with the help of the board, obviously. Risk manager is responsible for implementing that policy and the best practice. Both risk manager and risk committee, they have to make sure that they're in the best practice in the risk management. Okay. Risk manager, on the other hand, they will report to the committee on risk management practices by doing detailed research or monitoring external environment. Okay. So it's a two-way thing. A risk manager also risk committee also brings down into the risk manager. They share, they recommend. Risk manager also can recommend to the risk committee. It's a two-way thing. Okay. Further risk management strategies. One term that you should know is as low as reasonably practical principle. That is known as ALARP, the short form. You can use short form in an exam also. Okay. This says we cannot eliminate risk altogether. That means residual risk. Okay. So because it's costly to reduce risk, risk reduction does not come free of cost. Okay. So this says that you can reduce the cost up to a point where additional risk reduction will be grossly disproportionate to the benefit. That means reducing risk will not bring any benefit. Benefits are very less, risk reductions, cost is high. So at that point, you have to stop. That is known as low as a reasonably practical principle. That is the lowest you can reduce your risk. Beyond that, you cannot reduce because benefits will then be less than your cost. Okay, so this usually applies to the safety critical high integrated system where health and safety risk cannot be eliminated. Example, oil risks. Okay, so here when you reduce the risk, it has to be up to a point because beyond that, the benefit will be less. So there you cannot take risk. You have to keep it because it's regarding health and safety, oil rigs and all. Okay, so here, whatever, no matter what you do, some risk will be there. You cannot eliminate it. Okay, an extreme example to clarify this point is what? A company that spends billions of pounds to prevent a staff from suffering a bruised knee is grossly disproportionate. What does it mean? Is it worth it? Is it worth it to spend millions of pounds to prevent a bruised knee for the employee? No, benefit is will be very less, whereas the cost is very high. But other example where you are spending same million of pounds but to prevent a major explosion which can kill 150 people is proportionate. That means it justifies that you have to reduce it. You cannot accept it at that point. That time benefit and cost will be okay. Like benefit will be more than the cost. It's proportionate. Disproportionate means benefit will be less. Proportionate means it's good. You can reduce it. Now coming to diversifying and spreading risk. Okay, you can diversify risk. That means you can the risk can be spread by diversifying into operations in different areas. Like you can go to different industry or different country. Okay, because poor performance in one industry or country will be offset by a good performance in another area or country, so total risk is reduced. That is the meaning of diversification. Now it works best for those businesses where it is negatively correlated. You must have heard in my previous lecture what is negative correlation. Negative correlation means when risk in one area, okay, when one risk increases, the other risk reduces. So it should be like, then only diversification will work best. Best is okay. However, it still work on a degree as long as the correlation is less than 1. If your correlation is less than plus 1, it works better. Okay. It still works. Plus 1 is the best, like 1. But even if it's less than 1, like 0.95, 0.8, still it will work. Okay. Not positive correlation, where both risk increases. No, negative. One increase, one decrease. Then only diversification will work. Example is swimming costume and ice cream. They are poor diversification. Why? Because both are relying on same sunny weather. So when do you sell swimming costume and ice cream? In the sunny weather, no? Both of them are relying on the same sunny weather. So if business get affected for ice cream, swim costume also will suffer the same because both are relying on the same sunny weather. Whereas if one was dependent on winter, one was dependent on sunny, then it's a good thing because it's negative correlation. If summer affects, winter will be benefiting. Okay, so things like that. Now, these are the 4 ways a diversification can happen. We went through this in when we went through
strategic development. Remember? Recall your memory. How you are linking that to the risk now. I'm not going to go theory behind this, explain what is backward, forward, horizontal, unrelated. It is already explained. Backward integration, you go and integrate with your supplier. Go backward. You spread risk how? Now you can control your supplier. Raw material prices you can control. So that risk. Forward integration, you go forward and integrate with your customer. Now you can control the delivery. You can control the risk over there. Horizontal integration, same status of production, same line. A car manufacturer taking over another car manufacturer, integrating. Toyota and let's say Mercedes. Horizontal integration. Okay, economics of scale and all those things. Unrelated diversification, the most riskiest, but it could be good also. It can spread the risk if it's good, if it works well. But business is totally unrelated to your business. Okay, a tea company joining with a car company, like that. So if one affects, the other one will be benefiting. So your total risk is reduced. But there are problems with diversification that you should know. It's not one disadvantage is what? If diversification actually reduces risk, then why there are only few conglomerate industry? Conglomerate means unrelated diversification. Why only few conglomerate industrial commercial groups are there? It's very few, where they are totally in different line of business. Why is it so few? If the because success rate is less. Understand that. And another problem is business can only compete, they can only excel in those where they specialize. So you cannot totally go into an unrelated business where you don't have specialization and be successful there. Very rare. Third, difficult to excel in wide range of diversified business. You cannot be good in everything. So rather keep whatever you're good at, work in that, keep few, it's better. Right? Because if you try to diversify too much by going into different line of business, it's very difficult to manage. So again, your risk increases rather than going down with the diversification, because you are losing your efficiency, you become less efficient, and also problem of managing. Fourth, we have many organizations that diversify their operations. How? Both in order to grow and to reduce risk. Okay, they either want to grow or they want to reduce the risk. They want to diversify, but they do that in the related industries, like similar industries, like banking goes to insurance, television, film. Okay, all the same industry but in different parts of the world. Still, it is risky, no? Because both might since they're in the similar line, they will suffer positive correlation. So diversification is not so good in this area. Then little advantages is only there, very little for shareholders to diversify, because there's nothing to prevent them from diversifying by having wide range of portfolios in different industries and different parts of the world. Is it there so much like they don't have so much of risk that they have to diversify by holding so much of shares in different parts of the world or in different industries for shareholders? So now let us do test your understanding 2. Test your understanding too. Briefly consider whether it is always a good business strategy for a listed company to diversify to reduce risk. We are talking about listed company to diversify to reduce risk. That means whenever you are told that consider whether it is a good strategy or not, good or bad, what are they basically asking is you have to weigh the consequences, pros and the cons. Okay, so you have to list the advantages or disadvantages, like for and against. So if you see for, there are only 2, and against there are 3. That means against diversification is more than for. What are the reasons? Number 1, yes, it reduces risk. Okay, and they give more predictable return to investors. Number 2, attract investors who want low risk investments if you are risk averse. Against is it increases risk. Why? Because managers does not understand what business you are operate in. It is the investors who understand, right? But managers are the one who has to run the company, even if you invest in different business. Second, it is not necessary to diversify for investors. Why? Because they have institutional shareholders, many institutional shareholders in the listed company, that they are fully diversified in their own investments. Okay. Third, if they go for a new country or new company, it attracts risk. New business will attract risk, especially if you're going to a new country, because you might not understand a company's culture. It's a risk, right? Risk strategy and Ansof's matrix. Okay, if risk capacity has been reached, now we are linking this to the Ansoff matrix. Remember Ansoff matrix? Market penetration, Product development, market development, diversification, that one. Yes, we are talking about that. If risk capacity has already been reached, organization will go for the low risk activities. They do not want to take high risk. If high risk capacity is high, then risky projects are undertaken. Okay, so overall what happens? Organization strategy should be such that portfolio of some projects will have having high risk and some will be having low. Okay, a high risk appetite means what? You are taking higher risk activity. Low risk appetite means what? You are taking low risk activity. Okay, and a risk strategy of primarily self-insurance, where you want to self-insure yourself, limits your organization strategy, where you want to go for the risky projects. Okay, now let us go through this Ansoff matrix and remember 1, 2, 3, 4. I don't have to explain you Ansoff's matrix. We just went through that when we went through the strategy development. Existing product, new product, existing market. So market penetration, product development, market development, diversification. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, now we are going to explain it here. There are 4 options that can come. Option 1, that is what? Your position 1, that is market penetration. Here risk is low. Okay, why? Because both you know the product as well as the market. But what is the disadvantages here? The risk is low, risk is there, low risk is there, because you are attempting to sell the same product in the same market where demand is falling. It's a risk for you then. Example, video players. Who looks at video players now? Right? No one. Because you are trying to penetrate the market, no, same market with the same product. So demand is falling in that market, it's hard. So low risk. Option 2 is higher risk than the option 1. It is product development. You know the market, but the risk is that whether customers will accept your product or not. Example, mobile phone that can double as an MP3 player. Option 3, market development. It's even riskier than product development because you know the product but you don't know the market. And you are trying to replicate the same product in a different marketplace with the same strategy, might lead to fail. One example is in Germany, the ASDA. What is ASDA? It's a food company, online food business. It failed because your sales strategy, your market research might be poor in that new market. Customers might not want also that product in that different country. And option 4 is the most riskiest out of all. You don't know the market, you don't know the product, both are new. And it combines your risk 2 and 3 because new product, new development. So this is the highest. But remember, if it is successful, return is also the highest here. Okay, now let us do test your understanding 3 before we go to risk auditing. That is the last test your understanding. Test your understanding 3. This is a long case study and the answer is pretty long. Because there are 17 types of risk that has been identified in this. Okay, first let us read the requirement. The requirement basically says you have to identify and you have to explain the risk that this company is facing and how they should be managed the risk. Okay, remember there are no specific risk management model that is required. Okay, but you still have to use the model when you answer, especially when how risks are managed. So it's no specific risk management model is required means you don't have to use Tara or Sara. Other than that, there are other ways that you can discuss how that particular risk can be managed. So just read. Okay. So in the first para, what they say is that Azul Limited was incorporated in Sapenia. Okay. And they have an exclusive right that is granted by the government to provide twice weekly direct flights between Laimi and Daki. Okay, so first for us the important is that they are providing 2 weekly direct flights. Okay, which is quite very less, right, if you think in terms of capacity and all. Coming to the next, here they have introduced the service as efficient and timely in the newspaper. Okay, and the journey time is also expected to be significantly reduced. So that means it's encouraging tourism as well as business development. Okay, so here the main thing in this para is that it is, okay, let me highlight, I think it's better. Efficient and timely service. Coming to the third, they are operating a refurbished 35-year-old aircraft. This will tell you the age of the aircraft, which is leased from international airline and registered with
pivot in aviation. So here what it is that 35-year-old aircraft. It tells you the age of the aircraft. Then we are moving on to the next, the PAA. They require the engine to be overhauled every 2 years. So it talks about overhauling of the engine. Okay. And overhauls are expected to put the aircraft out of commission for several weeks. Okay. So that's a risk. Next, we are coming to the aircraft is configured to carry 15 business class, 50 business. So if you see, most is for economic class 76, 15 and 50. Okay, the numbers are not so important, but what you need to know is that aircraft has a generous hold capacity for the numerous horticultural grounds, growers like cocoa, tea, fruit and all. Okay, for that we have a general cargo. So here you can talk about the different classes, the seats, basically the revenue and all that they can incur from different seats. Then they have a 6-hour journey which offers in-flight movie like a meal, hot and cold, and the meals are prepared in a contract with the catering company and all. Okay, passenger invited to complete a satisfaction questionnaire, and according to the questionnaire, what it says is they are least satisfied. Customers are least satisfied, sorry, the passengers, with the quality of the food. So this is another risk. Next, they have they employ 10 full-time cabin crew, okay, who are trained in air stewardship and all regarding passenger safety in the event of accident, what you're supposed to do. And also the flight personnel, both captain and co-pilots are under a contract with the international airline from which the aircraft is leased. And at the end of each flight, they have to complete a timesheet detailing the crew and the actual flight time. So this is regarding flight crew, their safety and all. Then we are moving on to the ticket sales. So this factor is about ticket sales. Okay, they are made by Azure as well as a travel agent in this one, two places. So what happens? On number of occasions, economy seating has been overbooked. That means passengers are more than the seat for the economy seating. And this has affected what? So what should they do? How they overcame it? They accommodated some of them in the business class as a result. Okay, because there is much less demand for business, and even first class it's even less the demand. Okay, and also the ticket prices depends on many factors. For example, whether tickets are refundable or not, exchangeable or not, single ticket or return ticket, midweek or in the weekend, and the time of the booking. Okay, and next is their insurance. It covers passenger liability, freight baggage compensation, and premiums for the passenger liability are determined on the basis of the passenger miles flown. Okay, so now you have to identify risk from each. Okay, when you have to answer this in your actual exam, how do you do that? You go paragraph by paragraph. That is the easiest way to solve this question, because this passage is long. In your exam, actual exam, you'll be facing even longer than this. So let us go passage by passage. If you see, first they're talking about the exclusive right granted by the government and the twice weekly direct flight. So that should be your first point, first step of risk, I would say. Okay, so what is the risk? You first write the risk and what management should do to mitigate the risk. Okay, so here the risk, you write the name of the risk and management, what they have to do to overcome the risk. Okay, so first one, it is for the first risk is what? Right to operate. Right to operate. Okay, so right to operate, when will you get it? When there's a going concern. Okay, the going concern that must be met for the time being. Okay, and also the twice weekly flight may be a guaranteed minimum. Okay, and also if there are any terms and conditions that is attached to this right, you need a right to operate air flights and all. You just cannot operate it without rights, remember. So if with that right terms and conditions are also attached, it will threaten their existence, because they might put some circumstances that under this circumstances your right might be withdrawn. Especially for the example, if the standard of the service falls below a minimum specified level, how management can overcome this issue? Number one, they can accept at the present level, they can accept this risk. Okay, but in mind you have to bear, okay, when making strategic decisions, the impact that management's actions could have on a renewal of the right. When it comes to renewal of the right, you have to think about the impact of the management's actions. Currently, present level you can accept. Next is, you relevant terms and conditions should be communicated to all staff. Okay, so that you are not threatened under any particular situation. Make sure whatever the terms and conditions are there for you to get the rights to operate are communicated to all staff, so all staff know that they have an importance in the area of responsibility. This is how you can manage this risk. Coming to the next risk is competition. This risk is something which is very general for any type of organization, not just airline business. Okay, so you need to talk about whether it is highly competitive or less competitive. Okay, at the moment, do you think it's competitive? Did they said anything in the past about competition and all? No. So at the moment, there appears to be none. Okay, but in the future, there can be, which will reduce your profitability. Okay, so in the future, there might be an indirect service that might be between this and this that could be established. Maybe they might be competing with each other, giving indirect services and all. How do you overcome that? The competition risk. Monitor the progress of your application for flight to destinations, which goes through transit to this. Second, you reduce the risk by increasing the reliability and the reputation of your service so that they do not go to the competitors. By example, you can improve the comfort that you are giving, like giving them leg room, air conditioning launches, and all. Coming to the third risk, one might ask, how do you identify this risk? Should it be the exact wording that's given? No, it can be anything. How do you identify from the paragraph? Go through each paragraph, there are different types of risk you will get. And it's always better to start in this order. If you see your answer also, it is given in the order of the information given to you in the case study, so that it's very easy to link. If you see the first, it is about exclusive right, isn't it? Second, they're talking about this paragraph talks about competition. Okay, that you make your service reliable and all. Now third is 35-year-old craft. Third paragraph, even your answer also, if you see, that will be a third risk. So there is a connection with your answer and the passage given to you. Risk, age of the aircraft. Okay, this will help you to answer your questions better. And not only for this question, for any question, that is the pattern in SBL especially. Okay, so if you see, go by the age, what does it say? It's old, right? It's very old. Old means what? It will be bearing on fuel consumption, as well as there will be other repairs and maintenance cost. So here management has to work on the repairs and the maintenance cost. To repair on the maintenance and the repair cost, every year you need cash, good amount of cash flows. Make sure you manage your cash flow as well as borrowing capability. You might have to take a loan sometimes to manage the repair and maintenance. See, repair and maintenance is an ongoing activity. It's not once a year. That's why you need cash flow, and borrowing capability has to be there in the place. Fourth is engine overhaul. This is for the airline industry, you're talking about the risk. Okay, if you go here, fourth, you see, this is third paragraph. Then the fourth is overhauled engine. So this will tell you engine overhaul. What's happening here? If the lease is, see, they are taking it on a lease. If the lease is a finance lease, what happens? They will have to bear the cost of the overhaul, the company. So because they have to bear the cost of the overhaul, cash will decline. Okay, and also your service needs to be suspended while that engine is being overhauled unless you have an alternative plan. So what can management do while overhauling and all? They should budget its financial resources to meet the cost of the overhaul. When they are budgeting their financial resources, they have to make sure that they are going to face this overhaul cost. So timing has to be planned for it. Number one. Second, lease agreement. Go to the lease agreement, which the airline should provide that an equivalent aircraft be available. See, in your lease agreement, there should be a term which says that if this flight is taken for the overhaul, engine overhaul, another equivalent aircraft should be available to you. Third, in the interest of the passenger safety, in the event of the mechanical failure, what happens? You have to take care in terms of passenger safety or mechanical failure. Okay, it's in the interest. Then for major overhaul, alternative has to be planned for this. Major overhaul is done, you need to plan an alternative. And next is the default on the lease payment. You're unable to pay the lease payment, so you go for the alternative plan. Okay, so that your service should not stop. Now, what management should do to overcome that? There are two ways. One, you enter into a contractual arrangement, may be included within the terms of an operating lease. That means, what is that? For a replacement aircraft, in the event that their aircraft be grounded, you need a replacement aircraft that time. Second, insurance cover. Get it done insured, right? That means you are providing compensation to the customers for significant disruptions to the scheduled service. If anything happens to the service, delayed and anything, you are going to pay the compensation to the customer. And it's very significant. Make sure you have an insurance cover for it. Then we have, what is it? This is the fifth type of risk, that is fuel prices. I'm going to go a little bit quicker here. Okay. Obviously, fuel price is very important for the aircraft. See, some of this risk is basically, it's easy. You don't even need the case study for it. Like fuel prices, ticket prices, weather, food, things like that. But some you have to go depth into it. Like it's always better to go in deep what is given in the case study rather than you assuming and giving. But it's always good to have a guy like a brief understanding about this industry. Then it becomes easy for you to answer also. Because you might not get exactly this industry, you might get some other industry. Maybe you're in the transport industry, or let's say entertainment or teaching or whatever. Okay, fuel prices. So if it increases the fuel prices, what happens? Profit reduces. So what should management do? Make sure that they are given in the they have a flight price structure. It should be included, so that if any significant increases are there for the price, the flight price, it is passed on to the customer. Second, use hedging. For example, if it's a new country that you are taking the fuel prices from, exchange rate. You have to hedge against exchange rate. How? Maybe going to the forward contract. What is forward contract? You fix the price today for 3 years or in the future. Like whatever happens to the exchange rate in the future will not affect you because you are fixing the price today for the payment or receipt that you are going to do after 3 months. That is the meaning of forward contract. So in short, even if fuel price increases after 3 months, what you have to pay is what the rate that you have fixed today. Understanding? So you're hedging the risk. Next is weather. Weather, yes. This is also a very common thing. Since you are flying on the sky, a lot of things matter. Whether it's going to rain, whether you can see, whether it's very cloudy. So because they might delay or cancel your flight also. So because if this happens very frequently, customers cannot plan their trip. So what management should do? Risk modify the business activity. That means if weather conditions are bad, can you make any form of travel without any risk and all? No. So in that case, what you should do is air conditioner facility has to be there for the travelers where they can relax before their journey. You understanding? Because due to weather conditions, how many times you have faced this? That due to weather conditions, flight was delayed and you couldn't travel. There's a delay 4-5 hours. So imagine during that time, what are you going to do? Are you going to get frustrated or go back home? No, make sure that there's some air conditioning room there. They go take a rest before their journey. That is a technique that they can do. You need to be very creative with your technique, by the way, and make sure it has to be practicable, like actually useful in the real world, not something which is your imagination and which will never work. No. Identifying risk is something which is easy, but explaining this part, management part, is more difficult. Seventh is horticultural cargo. We went through this, right? While we were reading, where they have cocos and all those things. That means they're taking perishable items in the flight. So certain foods are prohibited from import. You cannot prohibit because it will spread the risk. And you might have to face fines also for carrying banned produce. So what should the growers do? They can hold as a liable for any produce which perishes and impounded goods. What should management do in this case? Contact with the growers, the one who grows it, so that they state the items of the produce that cannot be carried beforehand. You know what cannot be carried, and also operational controls to include verification checks on the produce carried. And third, adequate insurance has to be there for the damage and the lost cargo. Now coming to the eighth risk, that is economy. Remember, in the exam, you might not have to list all the risk. Maybe 3, 4 risks will be enough, depending on the marks. But here, just because some of you might write risk which I'm not yet covered, so that's the reason I'm explaining all the type of risk, because it's always good to know more than it is expected. Okay, economy. This is also something easy. It affects any industry. So there are less demand for the business class than economy. What is happening? Service is operating at below capacity. That means economy is earning only 54% of the seating capacity rather than having 100. How do you know 54? Because they have given you the percentage or the seats. So because of this, you are not even recouping a fixed operating cost in the long run, making the service uneconomical. What should management do here? You keep the demand of the classes of tickets under review and respond to the excess of the supply over demand. Okay. So if for economy supply seating surplus is there, okay, you can use first and business class seat. And also you can find out not only that, the demand shortfall for first and business class seats you can find out. Okay. For example, you can charge higher prices for economy on peak flights and offer discounts for advanced bookings on flight and business class seat, and loyalty scheme can be introduced for frequent user which offers preferred customer seat upgrades. Now we are moving on to the ninth type of risk, that is service level. Okay, what does it is regarding in paragraph 2 regarding service, it is efficient and timely. That means service delivered does not meet expectations. If it does not meet expectation, what happens? Regular customer base will not be established. So what should management do? Benchmark what should be your time of the service against what? Against comparable airline service operating under similar weather conditions as yours, because maybe if he might be operating in a good weather condition, you might be operating in a bad weather condition. Again, it's not a good way to do benchmarking. For benchmarking, most of the things has to be similar, even the weather that you are competing in. Understanding? Then we have number 10, on both services. On both services like meals and all, so they were dissatisfied with the meal, isn't it? What can management do? Change catering or contract with the caterer, or expert advice like ask the chef what should be the quality, especially for the long haul flights. Then we have passenger safety, isn't it? Because if you do not comply with the safety regulations like maintenance checks on the life jackets and all, you are going to incur inspection logs. Sorry, if inspection logs are not kept, you might even have to face lawsuit also, legal case and all, if there is any personal injury or illness to any of the passenger. So what can management do to reduce this risk? You train your staff, and it should be an ongoing, okay, not just once, so that regular safety drill procedures are used by the staff. And also before take off on every flight there should be safety procedure. Okay, like passenger has to be referred to the safety information, how to reduce the risk of DVD and provided with each seat. Then we have 12th risk, that is cabin crew safety. Okay, the company will have difficulty in recruiting and maintaining the service appropriately, sorry, maintaining the service of appropriately qualified cabin crew if it does not have a sufficient regard for their health and safety. Okay, you have to make sure of the health and safety of the cabin crew, otherwise it's very difficult to motivate them and recruit them and maintain them. What should management do? Pilots take ground leave before between flights, and there is an adequate cover which new where crews are sick or taking leave. So when crews are sick or taking leave, make sure someone else is there. There should be a cover up for it. Then 13 is emergency. Emergency can happen in anywhere, like serious accident or fire or collision threatens the operation in both short and long term. What happens? When you're answering, don't write general answer. Except this at the moment. No, with the airline industry, you have to answer. So except at the present level, but you have to take all practicable safety checks that are there in the airline industry. Okay, one is X-ray screening, checked-in baggage. The other one is security screening for the cabin baggage, and that one. So through this, you can make sure that you have checked, so the serious accident does not happen. Then we are moving on 14. That is flight personnel. Here, they might not be able to service the flight. Maybe some strike action or something. What should management do? Agreement with the airline should indemnify there for all the cost and the loss so ignored if the flights are cancelled due to non-availability of flight personnel. Okay, that means the company should bear all the cost and the loss if flights are cancelled. That also because of the like flight personnel were not available. Understanding? Next, 15, price ticket. Okay, see, when you see tickets are sold by more than one party, Azure also travel agent also. That means more than one location, so pricing is very complex. Okay, and also there are range of tariffs depending on many factor. For example, this increases the risk that revenue may be lost because passenger might be undercharged or sales are under recorded, like ticket sales, because too many places, different locations. So maybe ticket sales are under recorded, that means not recorded what should be recorded as sales, revenue might be lost. Second, flights will be overbooked if you're not booking in the flight tickets. Okay, so because of this also you're going to lose your customer goodwill constantly. Consequently, you're going to use as a consequence. No one wants to go in a flight where it's overbooked. You might have to sit in a different class. So the configuration of the aircraft does not currently meet the current demand profile of the passengers and under the terms of an operating lease may not be changeable. According to the configuration of the aircraft currently, you cannot identify what is should be the demand of the passenger because you should run first to know the passenger demand, right? And also under the terms of an operating lease may not be changeable. You cannot change this. What should management do here? Strict controls you can exercise when it comes to flight tickets. How you're going to use the unused ticket, how ticket should be priced, how real-time reservations has to be done, how ticket is refunded and exchange transactions. Now, commence negotiations with the international airline for an amendment to the current lease. If you want to amend your current lease terms, make sure you negotiate with the international airline so that it allows some flexibility in the seating arrangement. Okay, so that's it. These are the risks that we went through. Now, before I end this, let us go through tutorial note once. See, you might not have to, you're not expected to have a very specific and detailed knowledge about airline industry, but having some will always give you a benefit over others who does not have. Okay, some points you might have thought of, but they are not given in the answer. Let's see what are those. Like you are considering regarding the quotas for landing and takeoff slot. There's some quota, how much they can land, how many airlines can land in a airport per day or for the time given on the takeoff slot. It is given for particular airlines, right? For example, the aircraft is flying only 24 hours a week. Is a risk. Why? Because they are operating at low capacity. At which to operate for the recovery of the overhead, they will not be able to recover their overhead very soon because they are working less than they should. Just 24 hours a week, not worth it, right? So that's it. Risk auditing means it's a systematic way of understanding risk. You understand risk, but in a systematic way. Okay. So unlike financial auditing, this is not mandatory. Okay. But some highly regulated industries, they do a ongoing risk assessment and they audit also. It's compulsory in most governance jurisdictions, and they even employ internal specialists also to carry out the risk auditing. Otherwise, they can use external consultants also. Either internal or external can do that work. What are the case for internal audit? We are going to go through internal and external audit. Why do you need internal audit? See, because internal audit, okay, because actual risk management is whose responsibility? Management. So internal auditors are working in the organization. They are part of employee. So they prefer better to keep it in-house. Second, they have an advantage of familiarity. They know what are the system, what is the process. You don't have to teach them. They're familiar with it. So they know how each one is supposed to work. Okay. in terms of cost also is very less. Okay, so they can make a highly specific and focused risk assessment, the internal auditors. Whereas in external auditor, if you take, they might take long time first to understand the organization, which never happens because time is given is short. So they cannot have the same knowledge of the company's nuances that an internal team can have. Then case again, third, they are flexible. Internal auditors, they are flexible because they are part of management. You can make them work 24/7 anytime, anyway. External auditors, they have a fixed time. They have a fee. They will work according to the engagement letter. They are restricted by it. And managers can control the internal team. They can direct them. They can work at the company's notice. Then internal audit should produce work that is written and structured according to the expectation and norm of the organization. But external team, they will be criticized because they are pitching their reports too high at a technical level for a wider audience. Now, case for external audit. They have to comply with IFAS or ACCA's code of ethics. Okay, that what does it mean? They should be more objective than an internal team. Correct? And also because they will internal auditors, they suffer from over familiarity. That means they are not independent. They might not be taken as such at a you know authentic compared to external auditor because they do not have link with anyone. Second, threat is reduced for external auditor. That means higher degree of confidence if external auditor gives the report by the investor. Third, because they are new, they can give a fresh pair of eyes. Often what happens, internal auditors, since they are in the company, they're over familiar with things, they might overlook some of the things. But external auditor will be able to find it out. What are the cases for external? Okay, we have one more. Best practice and current development says external consultants are aware of this. When there are any best practice or any developments that take place, right? Current developments, external auditors are the one who are aware of this rather than internal auditor. So they can perform their work at a greater skill. They have greater knowledge and expertise rather than just sticking to the organization's needs and expectations. Now, what is the purpose of risk auditing? Why do you do risk auditing? Because it's like an overall risk monitoring activity. Someone has to monitor also, no? After you have implement the risk strategy. That is that. That is the last step, in fact, in the risk management process. You give your independent view of risk and control. Then, as with any audit situation, what happens? A fresh pair of eyes. You can identify if someone audits, easy to identify error omission. Same like how auditor audits financial statements. Many situations, audit work is obligatory. You have to do it. Risk auditing, like Sarbanes-Oxley. And also following a review, internal and external, they can make recommendations. Whether internal or external, they can make recommendations to amend the risk management system sometimes. Sometimes the people in the organization might not know what to amend or are there any errors or not. There are stages of risk audit, 4 stages. Identify, assess, review, report. You identify the risk, you assess the risk based on probability and impact, then you review whether the controls are working or not. Fourth, you report to the board, risk committee, what needs to be done, how to control the risk, what are the key risks. Okay. Now we are moving on to the process of external reporting of internal control and risk, where you report externally, external reporting of both control and risk, not just risk. So go through this 3. The process is, you first identify the statutory situation. Are there any requirement by the law? Second, you see whether you have to comply with ethical guidance or not. Third, make report only if required. This is not compulsory, by the way, unlike financial statements. So identify, okay. Internal control failure, directors making inappropriate decisions, like Enron. If there is an internal control, directors are making inappropriate decisions, you have to report it. It's a reporting situation. You have to report if there are internal controls are failing, directors are not acting appropriately. Check compliance. See where internal controls are working perfectly, directors are working perfectly, you don't have to report. Reporting situation does not require. Here you require. Checking compliance, like are you complying with the company, like you are reporting, does it comply with the stock exchange, companies act, your professional ethical guidelines says you so that you have to disclose, then yes. And make report if required, like you have to document the reason for the report, why you are reporting. Like if it's a qualified audit, yes. If it's a whistleblowing, yes. Otherwise, if it's an unqualified report, You don't have to report it, and make report to the appropriate third party if you have to do so. Otherwise, not required. If everything is working perfectly, no risk at all, risks has been managed properly, no need to report. Only where risks are not manageable. Coming to the UK external reporting, we'll see how the directors and auditors have to report on this. Directors, they have the overall responsibility. Remember, it's not the auditor's responsibility. It is the director's responsibility that they manage the control system in a company. Auditor, they identify and they document those internal control. Third, director, they appoint internal auditors and audit committee so that they can review and maintain the control system. Auditor, they test those control. Directors, they test internal auditors on a regular basis and make recommendations also to the board. Auditors, they report on material control deficiencies in the audit report. If there are material control deficiencies, not if its control is working perfectly, no, then you don't have to report. Then why to report? Then what directors do, the next step, they improve the control system. They repeat for each financial year, like every year they have to improve. Keep auditors informed of the results of the control testing. And combined code, where combined code has not been followed, the company will be delisted from the stock exchange. Okay. Auditor, what do? Fines are incurred for incorrect reports. If incorrect reports, fines you have to incur, fine according to Companies Act 2006. Now, the last is assurance, mapping, and risk management. This is the last in today's lecture. Before that, I will throw you this question. Let me ask you this question. How do you get assurance that whatever the risk management policies you have come up with is effective or not? Assurance. How do you know your financial statement is true or not? Auditors come and check and give a report, no? Qualified, unqualified. Same way for risk management process also assurance needs to be given. An objective examination, objective assurance. That means there have to be an evidence that someone has checked it. Someone is giving that this is correct. On governance, on your risk management, on control process. Next question, what is an assurance map? Very important for your exam. This might come in your exam. Very high possibility of this coming in your exam. I can like, my gut feeling is saying that this might come. So what is an assurance map? It's like a map which says it identifies, it maps the main sources and types of assurance that organization can give. There are 4 lines of defenses. That means 4 lines of assurance that is given. We'll go through that 4 lines. So assurance map shows these things. Before we go to the 4 line of defense, it shows these things. An assurance map, key elements. What are the key elements where assurance is required? Every organization will have different. Okay. The 4 line of defense it will show. That means details of who provides what can vary for who is providing this assurance differs in different organization. It's not fixed. Then any gap is there where no assurance limited or not provided at all. Assurance map can identify that this no assurance has been provided. Now this is an assurance map. Take some time to go through this. It's very small. I know it's a little bit difficult to read, but yeah. As you can see on your left hand side, financial reporting, like they are giving assurance whether financial reporting is assured or not. Legal, IT, treasury, financial control, human resource, fraud, health and safety, tax and pension. Assurance has been given by colored box. What are this colored box? Let us see. Very dark blue is high assurance and white is not applicable, and in between we keeps on reducing high, medium, low, things like that. Okay, and it will be colored like this. So through the color you will be able to identify no assurance, high assurance, medium assurance, low assurance. And just go to top the 4 line. It says first line, second line, third line, fourth line defense. So first line, if you can see, it says control framework management review. That means managers. Second, it is like risk and compliance review. Third, it is like the board review. Sorry, the second is board review. Third, it says internal audit. Fourth, it says other third party or external auditors. So now let us go to the benefits of assurance. So these are the 4 lines. Okay, first line is usually the managers in your organization. Second line, it is like uh, the board reviews it. Third, internal auditor. Fourth, external auditor. Okay, what are the benefits of assurance mapping? It provides a basis on which to communicate with stakeholders.
Through this, you can communicate with your stakeholders and begin a quality conversations. Second, there are benefits for each of the groups. Okay, whoever is going to make use of this map. So this means the board can make more reliable and robust reports also to the stakeholders about the internal control. Third, without this map, audit and risk committee will have access to unlikely to have access to sufficiently well structured. This is a very well structured analysis. If this is not done, audit and risk committee cannot get access to that. So they will not know. There will be no any evidences or things that assurance has been given or not. Then it enables the members of the risk and the audit committee to focus on those areas that is a concern, not every area. Then senior managers, they can have evidence at least for the future to support their assertions that yes, internal control is working, especially when you have to have a state like internal control for any public report. You have to make a statement. This will work as evidence. You can communicate easily to the external auditors and shareholders in the future if you have to make any kind of public report. And the assurance related work of the individuals that is operating within the four line of defense can be best directed to avoid overlaps. See, every individual is giving assurance, not just one, in different four levels. So because of this, there is no overlap. One person is giving one line, second line is giving second, third is third, fourth is fourth. So four times assurance has been given in four different levels. It makes it more assured. Okay, rather than only one person giving assurance. And again, enhanced communication. Because everyone knows the benefit of assurance that stakeholders are going to get from that map. It is in a presented way, right? Presentation way, graphically presented, I must say. Now, what are the four lines of defense? First line, the way the risks are managed and controlled day to day. Okay, that's why managers are giving the assurance. Second, and what is the benefit of it? Assurance comes from whom? The one who are directly responsible for it. Okay, here independence is lacking but at least the value is high because it comes from those who know the business, who know the culture, and who knows day-to-day challenges. Second line is what? Organization oversees the control framework so that it operates effectively. Organization is the one who oversees the control framework, the board. Benefit is they are separate from the one who are delivering the assurance. The board is not giving the delivery, it is a management. So assurance is given from a separate individual. But again, they are not independent of the management chain. They are also part of it. Third line, objective and independent assurance but by internal auditor. So again here, not absolute but reasonable assurance is given. That effectiveness is there in governance, risk management and control. Okay. Now, what is the level of the assurance and what is the depth of that assurance depends on what is the size and the focus of the internal audit function. And also the management's appetite for the internal audit assurance. Whether they accept it high or they do not value it so much. Fourth line is by the external auditor. Independent bodies give assurance, like external auditors or other external bodies. So benefit is one, they are not familiar, they can give independent objective. It is valued also, right, by the outsiders, third parties. So now, what else? It's the summary. So we have come to the end of this lecture. We started with the role of the board. They take strategic level view for the risk. They take risk from the whole view of the organization. Then they are the responsible for driving that process of risk management. We went through risk appetite, that is the risk attitude, like affected by your organizational size, structure, and stages of development. What is your organization? What is the size? What is your structure? What stage of development are you at? This will matter your risk attitude. Are you risk taking or risk averse? You avoid risk or you want to take risk? If you are initial at the lower stage, you are risk seeking. You want to take more risk. Once you are matured, you will be taking less risk. Risk capacity. Capacity of your risk. Risk committee was the second. Okay. It is made up of executive and non-executive director, majority non-executive director. They risk awareness, and we went through their roles and responsibilities and benefits. Please do go through them. They establish policies. They monitor. These are the main, some which I've listed. They process to monitor and report risk, update company risk profile and appetite. Then we went through risk manager.
They implement this risk management policies and they have an operational role. Risk awareness, you make, if you're unaware of it, it might lead to inappropriate risk management strategy. Then you embed risk in the system and in the culture. Then Tara or Sara, transfer, avoid, reduce, accept, based on the impact and the likelihood, that this thing. Then we went through risk auditing. There are 4 stages of risk auditing. What are the 4 stages? Identify, review, identify, assess, review, and report. This can be done by internal as well as external auditors. We went through that, right? Then we went through risk reporting. You identify whether there are any reporting situation or not, whether you have to report or not. If not, then don't report. If you have to report, then check whether it's complying or not in any governance code or anything. And make required if required, like qualified audit opinion. Assurance mapping was the last 4 lines of defense we went through, where 4 different people are giving assurance. So thank you for watching and best of luck for your SBL exam, and I'm hoping that you do your best. So see you with the remaining portion for the September session, but I'll be doing it like in few days. I'll be starting again. So till then, keep watching and do take care.